everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's episode of GirlExec. I'm Aisha, and I'm joined by my great friend, Christy. Today's episode is Building Your Leadership Presence. Leadership presence is and has been a hot topic for a while now. Yet, despite its popularity, it remains difficult to pinpoint exactly what leadership presence is.
And the reality is we know when someone has it, and on the flip side, when it's missing. If I were a betting person, and I'm not really, I'd take a gamble that you could quickly conjure up an image of both. This tells us that it's observable. So let's unpack the phrase a bit further by A, just defining it, and B, identifying how we can enhance or improve our presence.
Leadership presence is that ability to take command of a room, to assume a leadership role amongst various different audiences, and to share your thinking and opinion with confidence. But to demonstrate leadership presence, you have to do at least three things. Raise your level of emotional intelligence, grow in your ability to adapt to the situation, and continue your development by observing yourself and others.
Let's talk a little bit more around raising your emotional intelligence. When you think about this, the lifeblood of strong leadership presence is the essence of your character. It's how it's conveyed and perceived by your audience. There's several things we could think of: a respectful demeanor, authenticity, an emotional connection, effective interpersonal communication. They are all at the core of the competency that forms the basis of having the strong leadership presence. All of these elements are rooted in your level of emotional intelligence, and simply defined, emotional intelligence is your ability to recognize and understand and manage our own emotions, and then recognize and understand and influence the emotions of others. So I will share more of a personal and I bet pretty relatable example. When I'm driving along and I'm running late, that's often the issue for me. And I'm sitting at the light and I can see the person in front of me scrolling away on their phone while the light's green. My immediate reaction is to honk on the horn. Now I've gotten a lot better, but that's not always been the case. So in that example, I'm aware, but I didn't manage my reaction at all. And when my daughter is sitting in the car, guess what she does now? When someone's doing it and she's in the passenger side, she starts fussing at them. So I had a negative influence on her.
People see everything. They definitely see how we show up. And I think on the showing up piece, the next aspect is leadership presence requires you to grow in your ability to adapt to those situations. We all have an individual leadership style that we gravitate to, and often it's based on our personality. So you may have a style that's more authoritative, where you speak boldly about what has to be done. You're quick to say by who, by when. Or you may have a style that's more democratic, where you want to hear the views of everyone in the room and then come to a consensus. Likewise, in personality, you may have a natural style that's more upbeat and high, or a style that's more laid back or even quite direct and straight to the point. The link of all of this to leadership presence is the fact that not all teams and all situations require one style all the time. So to be that effective leader and to increase your presence, you have to learn to constantly read the situation and then adjust, because what will work is always changing. So that leader who has that impressive presence has the ability to adapt to the audience's energy level in the room and their needs, have a certain level of situational awareness to be able to read the room quickly, and then to be able to flex, to flow with the approach that's needed for the moment. And I have a very personal example. So, Chris, you know that my career has taken me across the world, and I've worked with a lot of different cultures. You also know that I have a very high energy, upbeat, positive personality and style, just naturally. That works in some cases, but a few years ago, I was working with a predominantly European-based team, and I felt a disconnect in our relationship at the start. Long story short, I learned that my upbeat, always smiling, Miss Sunshine personality, for them read as my being insincere and inauthentic, because their natural business style was more measured. So once I realized this, I knew that for me to be effective in my relationship with them, I would need to flex and tone down my style in that context. Not to not be myself, but to flex to be able to influence the audience. And by doing that, it really course corrected us to have better relationships, more buy-in, and I had greater impact as a leader.
Mhm.
So the key advice here is adapt to others versus expecting people to adapt to you by reading, understanding, and adapting to that team and to that situation.
That is an excellent example of being a versatile leader. And speaking of leaders, when we think about how we develop our leadership presence, we recommend follow a leader. I mean, think for a moment, whether if it's a person or several individuals whom you consider to have a remarkable leadership presence, a person who you admire and respect, and you suspect or likely know that others respect and feel the same. Spend some time observing this individual. What behaviors do they engage in? What's their communication style like? And how do others react to them? And when do they talk versus observe? Jot down some reasons that help explain why they have a strong presence, and they consider how you might assume certain elements of their stuff. Because again, you have to be yourself, but there are some behaviors that you could replicate that are authentic to you. Often we simply need a role model or an exemplar to help us develop our own skills.
Chris, we can learn so much just by really intentionally observing others. I completely agree. And the
Mhm.
final point is receive feedback. Now that you've identified these ways that you can enhance your presence, you need to put that style to the test and check up on it. So I always say find a buddy, find that trusted colleague who will have the opportunity to be in situations with you to observe your leadership moments. And then set up times with them intentionally to get their feedback. What are you doing well? What can you tweak or improve upon? Ultimately, leadership presence again requires at least three things. Raise your level of emotional intelligence,
Mhm.
adapt your style to the situation, and learn through observation of yourself and of others. We hope these tips will help you show up in your most powerful way.
Yes.
Please share these tips with others. And as always, please subscribe to Girl Exec, conversations to enrich your career and life. Thank you.